The gravel crunched under my boots as I pulled into the driveway of our modest Seattle bungalow, the late afternoon sun glinting off the windows. My heart sank before I even cut the engine of my pickup. My mother-in-law, Diane, stood in the open garage, clutching a wad of cash and wearing a smug grin that spelled trouble. Her floral dress fluttered in the breeze, and her eyes sparkled with the kind of self-satisfaction that made my skin crawl. "Lydia, dear," she called, waving the bills like a victory flag. "I've done you a huge favor." I climbed out slowly, my gaze darting to the garage. The spot where my 1969 Harley-Davidson Panhead usually sat was empty, just a faint oil stain and the lingering scent of leather and metal. My stomach twisted. "Where's my bike?" I asked, my voice low, already dreading her answer. Diane's smile widened. "I sold that noisy old thing for you. Got $2,500 cash, more than it was worth, if you ask me. You needed something practical, not some dangerous relic. Honestly, a woman your age riding a motorcycle, it's unseemly." The world seemed to blur for a moment. I stared at the empty space where I'd poured 5 years of my life into restoring a rare panhead, one of only a few thousand built. I'd found it as a rusted frame in a junkyard and rebuilt it piece by piece, from the V-twin engine to the hand-stitched leather seat. Appraised last month at $85,000, it was my pride, my legacy, my connection to my father. "You sold it?" I repeated, my voice steady despite the rage simmering inside. "For your own good," Diane said, tucking a strand of her bobbed hair behind her ear. "Evan agrees. You spend too much time tinkering in that garage instead of proper hobbies like knitting or hosting book clubs. Now you can buy something sensible, maybe a nice SUV." I stepped closer, noting how she gripped the cash protectively. $2,500 for a bike worth a small fortune. "Who'd you sell it to?" I asked. "Some nice young man from my Facebook Marketplace ad," she said, beaming. "Said he was thrilled to get a fixer-upper. I told him it needed work, but he didn't care. I even threw in those old tools cluttering the place." My tools, my father's Snap-on set, a 40-year collection from his days as a mechanic, worth $15,000 alone, passed down to me with his grease-stained manuals and his love for two-wheeled freedom. I swallowed hard. "Did you get his information?" "Of course," Diane huffed, pulling a folded Post-it from her purse. "I'm not careless. Here's the receipt." The note was a scribble. "Mike Smith, 2500, Harley." No phone number, no address, just a name that screamed alias. "Did he show ID?" I asked. She waved a hand. "He paid cash, Lydia. That's what matters. You should be grateful." I pocketed the note, forcing a smile. "You're right, Diane. Thank you." Her smugness faltered, confused by my calm. She'd expected a fight. Instead, I gave her compliance, a trap she didn't see coming. "Well, good," she said, deflated. "Evan will be happy when he's back from Portland." Evan, my husband of 7 years, who'd given his mother a spare key for emergencies and never challenged her oversteps. Evan, who called my bike cute, but rolled his eyes when I spent weekends wrenching instead of brunching. "I'm sure he will," I said, pulling out my phone. "Mind waiting a sec? I need to make a call." She nodded, already rearranging my workbench, oblivious to the chaos she'd unleashed. I stepped into the backyard, where the Wi-Fi was strong, and dialed a number etched in my memory. Detective Ramirez, it's Lydia Kane. I need to report a theft. Javier Ramirez, a buddy from my old motorcycle club, now a cop with Seattle PD, knew my work in the vintage bike scene. "Lydia, what's up?" he asked, concern sharp in his voice. "Someone sold my '69 Panhead without my consent," I said, glancing at Diane, who was now sorting my sockets by size, clueless. "The one you rebuilt for Sturgis? Damn, who?" "My mother-in-law," I said. "Thought she was helping by selling it for $2,500 on Facebook Marketplace. Called it a junk bike." Javier let out a low whistle. $2,500 for a Panhead? That's a crime in itself. What have you got on the buyer? I read him the post-its details. It's thin, but she thinks he's legit. Also tossed in my dad's tools, $15,000 worth. Another pause. "Okay, send me everything. I'll run it through our database. Sounds like a pro scoping cheap classics. I'm sorry, Lydia. That bike was your soul." "Thanks, Javier. Texting now." I sent the details, then returned to Diane, who stood triumphant, hands on hips. "All done?" she asked. "Yep," I said, my tone light. "Why don't you head home? Evan's back tomorrow. You'll want to brag about your big sale." She gathered her purse, glowing. "This is for the best, dear. You'll see." As her car pulled away, I stood in the garage, staring at the void. 5 years of late nights, of sourcing rare parts, of learning carburetor tuning from my dad's old journals. Diane saw a relic. I saw a masterpiece. I grew up in Tacoma, daughter of a Harley mechanic who'd rather rebuild an engine than watch TV. Dad taught me to ride at 10, to wrench at 12. "Bikes are freedom, Lyd," he'd say, his hands stained with oil. When he died, I was 25, inheriting his tools and his dream: restore a Panhead to its 1969 glory. I moved to Seattle, worked as a mechanical engineer by day, and spent nights in my garage, turning a $5,000 wreck into a showpiece. Every bolt was a memory, every polish a tribute. Evan was charmed by my hobby when we met, but he never got it. A sales manager, he lived for client dinners and golf weekends, not grease and chrome. Diane was worse, always pushing me toward ladylike pursuits, critiquing my calloused hands or oil-stained jeans. "You're a wife now," she'd say. "Act like it." I'd nod, keeping the peace, but the barrage was my sanctuary, the bike my defiance. I'd quietly supported them both. When Evan's car loan defaulted, I paid the $8,000 balance. When Diane's kitchen flooded, I covered the $12,000 repair. I sent her spa gift cards, bought Evan's niece a laptop for college. No thanks, just Diane's backhanded, "You're so generous," considering. Considering what? My unfeminine obsession? My wasted weekends? I let it slide, but the bike was my line in the sand. The next morning, Javier called. "Bad news," he said. "Mike Smith's a ghost. Phone's a burner, address is a vacant lot. Likely a flipper targeting undervalued bikes on Marketplace." I sat at my desk, staring out at the Puget Sound from my engineering firm's office. "So it's gone?" "Not yet," he said. "I've got contacts in the collector scene. A Panhead that clean won't stay hidden. I'll check auction houses, dealers, bike shows. Send me pics of the bike, any unique marks." I sent him photos, the custom pinstriping I'd hand-painted, the rare chrome shifter only '69 models had. That afternoon, Evan texted from Portland. "Mom said she sold the bike. Good call. More space now. Maybe a Peloton? I didn't reply. Some fights waited for face-to-face. He got home that night, all smiles, lugging his suitcase. "Lydia, the Portland deal was a slam dunk," he said, loosening his tie. Clients ate it up. I chopped onions for dinner, my knife steady. "Glad it went well. Diane told you about the bike?" "Yeah," he said, grabbing a seltzer. "Honestly, I'm relieved. That thing was a money pit." I set the knife down. "It was worth $85,000, Evan. A 1969 Panhead, one of a few thousand made. I restored it to concourse condition." He froze, seltzer halfway to his mouth. "What? Mom said it was junk." "Your mom committed theft," I said. "She sold my property for $2,500 to a guy who's probably flipping it for 10 times that. And she gave away Dad's tools, $15,000 worth." Evan's face paled. $85,000? Why didn't you tell me it was worth that?" "You never asked," I said. "In 7 years, you never cared enough to learn what I was building. You called it a phase. Diane called it unseemly. Neither of you respected it." He stammered. "We can fix this, right? Get it back?" "The police are trying," I said. "But pros like this move fast. Diane's nice young man was likely a thief scouting deals from clueless sellers." Evan sank into a chair. "What do we do?" I leaned against the counter, my voice cold. "I'm working with the cops. You need to talk to your mom about boundaries and consequences. What she did wasn't just meddling, it's a felony." He nodded, shell-shocked, but I saw the truth. He'd always let Diane run the show. I wasn't sure he could change. 2 days later, Javier called, his voice electric. "Found your bike. It's in Vegas, with a collector named Victor Chen. Bought it for $60,000 from a dealer who got it from your Mike Smith. Chen's legit, runs a museum of classic bikes. When I told him it was stolen, he flipped. Wants to help." I leaned back in my office chair, relief flooding me. "How do we get it back?" "Chen's insurance will cover his $60,000, Javier said. "He's got the dealer's records, which trace to the thief. We've got Diane's post-it as proof of theft. It's a slam dunk case. Vegas PD's holding the bike as evidence." "How long?" I asked. "Couple weeks for paperwork, but it's safe. Chen even sent photos. Your pinstriping's intact." I smiled, picturing the bike's curves. "Thanks, Javier. I owe you a ride." That night, I called a family meeting. Evan sat at our dining table, looking like he hadn't slept. Diane arrived, her usual poise intact, clutching a latte. "I don't see why this requires a meeting," she said. I said, "Explained to Evan. It was for Lydia's benefit." I slid my tablet across the table, open to a photo of the Panhead in its glory, gleaming chrome, deep black paint, my pinstriping like a signature. "This is what you sold for $2,500, I said. "A 1969 Harley-Davidson Panhead, worth $85,000. Diane's latte trembled. "That's absurd. It was a rusty old bike." I swiped to earlier photos. The frame as I'd found it. A skeleton in a Montana barn. The engine rebuild. Parts laid out like a puzzle. The final assembly. Every detail perfect. "Restoration takes years," I said. "What you called junk was a masterpiece. You also gave away my father's tools, $15,000 worth. You stole from me, Diane." Her confidence cracked. "Stole? I was helping." "You sold property that wasn't yours," I said. "The buyer was a pro thief, flipping classics for profit. The police found the bike in Vegas, bought for $60,000. You committed a felony, theft of property over $25,000. That's up to 7 years in prison." Evan's head dropped into his hands. Diane's eyes welled up. Prison? I didn't know. You didn't ask, I said. You decided my passion was unseemly and took it upon yourself to fix me. But you didn't just sell a bike. You sold my father's legacy, my work, my heart. Diane sobbed, her latte forgotten. I'll pay you back. With what? I said. Your $2,500? This isn't about money. It's about respect you never gave me. Evan looked up, voice hoarse. We'll make this right, Lydia. I shook my head. You can't. The police are handling it. Diane, you'll face charges.